Welcome to How's Your ePresence? This show is produced by ePresence, and I am Mark Galvin, your host. We are so glad you are with us today. We're still in winter. It's still a little cold outside, and I have a cold or I've got something else. I didn't actually get a test, so I don't know what I got, but I'm on the back end of it. This is the beautiful thing about working from home. I don't have anybody around me except, well, my dogs. I don't think they've got it yet. So the good news is in this remote world of able to work from anywhere you sit, you can get things done. And we are glad you are with us today. If you would remember, we've got a whole library of stuff. There's that voice thing that's going to happen. So you're going to hear that a couple times today. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel for all of our great content. Subscribe to our podcasts. There's so many great things that are there, and that'll automatically drop it into your podcast feed. If you've got questions, just send them right there in your chat box. Wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, if you drop in a question, we will throw it in front of our guest today. So our guest is returning. She was back. I think she talked to us in November, and she's an expert on email blasts. So we're going to talk about email blasts and how to make them work better. Our guest is Liz Wilcox. Liz is with a humongous firm called Liz Wilcox LLC. She is an email marketer on a freaking mission to help more businesses package up their magic and sell it through email. When we had her on the show back in November, we didn't quite uncover everything we wanted, so we asked her to come back. So we're thrilled to have her join us again. Reminder, ask us questions. If you have a question anywhere you are, drop it in your chat box. We would be happy to throw that in front of Liz, or just tell us where you're tuning in from. We'd love to see where you are. Well, I think that's enough of the intro here. Let's see if we can find Liz and bring her to the screen. Liz, there you are. How are you?
I'm so good. Great to see you again, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad you are back. Glad you're not sitting in the same room as me. I'd end up having to wear a mask. You wouldn't be able to hear me. This is good to be remote, but you are not where you normally are. I mean, last time we spoke to you, you had all the backs, what is typically behind you?
Usually some NSYNC posters, maybe a little Will Smith. But yeah, Mark mentioned earlier about it still being winter. Well, I'm in sunny Orlando, Florida. Behind me, if we pulled back the curtain, there would be like a lagoon pool,
Oh, how
Disney
cool is
World.
that?
Yeah, I can see Disney, Epcot from my window, all that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you should be out at the pool deck sitting and having this conversation.
Well, it it's still morning. It's still morning. I wanted a
Okay.
good
All
strong
right.
internet connection as well.
All right. I appreciate that. I truly do.
It's for
Well,
you, Mark.
it is great to have you back again. Let's assume that we've got listeners and watchers that did not see the last show. So tell everybody, what do you do and why do you do it?
Sure. So, like Mark said, I'm Liz Wilcox. And you know, when you get really fired up when you listen to a podcast like this, or you watch a webinar and someone like me comes on and says, email marketing, it's so great, it's got a high ROI. And so you open up Active Campaign or Entreport or something, and you go to write an email, and then you promptly feel kind of stupid because you have no idea what the heck to write. I help eliminate that problem. I make writing emails simple, and I do that because I used to have an RV blog, and I just found that I could actually make money through email. And I found when I bought big programs, they were all just so convoluted and confusing. And so I just decided to stick to one thing. And when I finally made it work for myself, I couldn't believe just how simple it could be. So, like Mark said earlier, like I really truly am on a freaking mission to make email marketing work for you and your business as well.
I love that. Now, you had a lot of success at it. Isn't that right?
Correct. So, I guess one of the reasons why I really went hard was when I launched my first digital course, I had 141 people on my wait list, and by the cart open close, I made 141 sales.
See, that's
So,
fantastic. And
a little bit of success there.
so it works. And that's the big trick. And that's the thing that we loved with what you shared before is what you do works. So folks, this is great content. This is tested stuff. You're going to like what Liz has to share today. So let's get into it if you're okay with that. My first question is it good to tell stories in every newsletter? Because Liz, everyone says, right? Everyone says, tell a story and engages your audience. Is it good to do that?
Yes and no. I wouldn't suggest sending out a story every single week or, every single time you send out a newsletter. I call that advice a little dusty. It's a little old.
It's
And
a
in the
little dusty. Blow the dust off of that advice. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And so while stories truly do connect, I've probably told at least one since we've been live in the last 5 minutes. And so that is true. And so when you really do have a good story, like go ahead and share it with your audience. But if you're trying to stay top of mind and be consistent with your email marketing, which you should, you don't have to tell a story every time. Chances are, if you're emailing every single week you're not, Disney World is not in the background, you're not doing a podcast with Mark, there's not that much exciting stuff happening. So instead of right, so instead of having to
But
tell a
wait a minute.
story.
We
Sure.
could do a podcast every week. I'm just saying.
We could. I think we could. I think we would have enough to
Because
talk about.
what you just said is exciting to do a podcast with Mark, right?
Very much. Oh yes.
Okay. I'm just like
Yes.
everybody, you heard it here first. Just saying.
Like and subscribe. Leave a review.
That's exciting. That's right. I love that. What were you saying?
Amen.
I'm sorry. I'll get out of the way.
Oh yeah, get out of here. So when you tell a story every single week, when you're not a storyteller, so let's say you got into business and you're a realtor or even like a jewelry maker or something like that, you did not get into business to tell stories. You're not like Mark and I, where we could have a podcast every single week and just, jam out on business or whatever our thing is, right? So instead of trying to tell a story every single or when you try to tell a story every single week, it probably will fall, it takes you maybe a couple hours to write. It's probably too long because, you're not a professional writer and it's going to fall flat week after. If you do that week after week after week, it's going to actually train your subscribers. Oh, Mark's telling a story, he's not that good, I'll
Mm,
save that for
mm.
later, right? I'm going to skip over that right now and I'm going to go to, oh, there's my electric bill, I'm going to open that and see how much I owe because it's winter and it's cold and I got a budget for that, right? And so when you're telling these stories every single week, and especially if they're long or they're not very good, it's just going to train your audience out of opening, which is the exact opposite of what you want. So instead, you can train them to get interested in you as a person and then give value every single week. And of course, value means different things. You might be sharing some inspirational content. You might be, sending out your podcast. You might be linking to this awesome email marketer named Liz, or you might be asking a question, something like that. But basically, just give a personal update instead of telling a story. And a personal update is just 2 to 3 sentences like, hey, I just interviewed Liz. She was wearing a red headband. I've never seen her in red. She looked fabulous. By the way, here's a link out to, this Instagram reel that I made. I hope it helps you with X, Y, and Z. Peace out, Mark, right? I just wrote the whole newsletter there instead of trying to
Wow.
tell a story about how he met Liz or, whatever, and segueing into some content, that can be really hard. It's hard to tell a story that makes sense. We've all been at dinner with someone where you're like, okay, get to the point, right? Yeah, yeah, mom, just tell me what happened.
Right.
So
Typically, those are the people that are looking at me across the table, like, whatever. We've heard the story.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, we've all been there, right?
Right. Right.
It's only the ones that we practice over and over that we're really good at. So just 2 to 3 sentences, something you did, in the last week, that just gives that a little bit of that personality. Like Mark mentioned his dog earlier. That was just giving a little piece, like a little sneak peek into his life. And then he moved on into the actual interview. He didn't tell a story about his dog, nothing. He did it right at the top of this podcast interview, right? Just, oh, me and my dog, I'm not feeling good. Anyway, Liz Wilcox, blah, 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 right? So you can do the exact same thing in your inbox.
So this is fantastic, Liz. And the reason I like this is because it complements a lot of the things that we talk about for social media. And so
Mm.
you could actually apply these together. And my suggestion, and I'm going to throw this at you, I'd love for you to give me some ideas because everybody's an expert in their space. It may be boring, right? Like you're dealing with email blast all day long, every day. And it could be where you say, whatever, nobody cares. It is easy to kind of lull ourselves to sleep, especially if we're not used to looking for content. So, what I encourage people to do is sit at their desk and have some mechanism, a tablet, a spot on their computer. Some people use Evernote, some people use OneNote, whatever, some place where every time a customer or a person or a colleague asks you a question, write it down, write the question down. And that question is there. Somebody's asking you because it is intriguing. Now, you may think the response is just boring because it's just stuff that's in your head, but it gives you something that you could quickly say, all right, here's content. Hey, Liz asked me last week why my computer's running so slow, and I suggested she do this XYZ. That's a great way, a fallback where, okay, I don't have a story, but it is kind of like a story because you picked up the phone, so to speak. You called me, you asked me a question. It's real. And I have a cough. And so now's a good opportunity for you to talk so I can cough some.
Okay, you mark, and you cough, mute and cough. Okay. So I completely agree with what Mark is saying. I do that too, and I do that very often, like you said, on social media if people are asking. And I also think of, if you don't have that big of an audience yet, or you're like, oh, nobody's asking me anything, it's really hard for me to engage. You can also try to predict their behavior. Try to predict, like, oh, if
Huh.
they have this problem, right? And then you can actually experiment within the inbox. So you can write a newsletter about that. Like, I have a membership, and yesterday I suggested to everyone to have some inspirational content, send inspirational content out. Now, these people have to predict that, what they think their subscribers are going to find inspirational. For me, I was like, oh, real easy win for you would be to, pick a Winter Olympian right now and, talk about them, right? And then you'll see if people are clicking over to that link, then you'll see if that is like on or not. If nobody clicks on it, you're like, okay, well, they're not interested in this type of content. You can scratch it off the list. Or, you know, but if they are, oh, wow, they're really into inspirational content. I'm going to make sure, like Mark said, to, have a notepad or something. I'm going to make sure once a month, once a quarter, I put that into my newsletter, right? And basically, I'm using, instead of telling your own freaking story, because you're like, how am I inspirational? I'm just a lady in a hotel room. um, you can use other people's stories, right? You can link out and say, hey, this inspired me because of X. Like, I'd love for you to read the article. And then you don't have to create any content that week, nothing like that. So you can definitely try to predict behavior and move on from there. If nobody links to it, okay, well, these people aren't inspirational. They just want the facts. So, move in that direction. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And I love what you're doing is you're really encouraging people to watch the analytics of their system, and people will vote on the type of content they like. You watch that and you can see, gosh, people really like when I answer questions, or people really like it when I tell a story. Now, it doesn't mean you tell a story every time,
Mhm.
right? And we've established that, especially if you're not a great storyteller. But it doesn't mean don't tell stories. It doesn't mean don't answer questions. It means watch those analytics and figure out where your sweet spot is. I love that. I'm going to move
Mhm.
on to a next question for you because there's so much great content here. When so there is a welcome sequence, and I'd love for you to describe what is a welcome sequence and what are the best practices for implementing a welcome sequence.
Yeah, so a welcome sequence, really simple. If you have a freebie or some way of getting people onto your email list, it's just those automated emails that welcome someone to your show, right? Welcome to
Right.
lizwilcox.com, welcome to ePresence Live, whatever your brand is. And what you want to do I see people messing this up so much, but you have to think, you never get that first impression back, right? And so this is you putting your best foot forward and showing off three things: your personality, your vision, and your values. People really, really need those. And so with your personality, obviously, I'm not at home, but you can still see a bit of my personality. I've got the rainbow glasses, I've got a headband, I'm bragging about my pool day when we get off the phone. You can tell who Liz Wilcox is. If you go to my site, you'll be like, oh, yes, that makes sense, right? It's very congruent. And so I'm showing off that personality in my welcome sequence as well. And so
So,
you
Liz,
don't
I got
have,
a question.
please.
So, your welcome sequence you're talking about is if I sign up for your email newsletter, I will start to see this welcome sequence. So it's
Cor-
either in it, in this case, we're talking specifically about email. And so when I sign up, when I say I'm in, there needs to be emails that I'm getting that is part of the welcome sequence, or do I land on a website? What is that? How does the
Yeah.
welcome sequence manifest itself?
Sure. So the technical bit of it would be, I go to Mark's website. He says, oh, I'm going to give you some tips on X. Just sign up here. I sign up, and then I go into a sequence, an email sequence, like he said,
Got it.
that are through his email service provider that are automatically sending me emails. I recommend 4 emails. But the main
Okay.
thing I want you to understand is, like, you've got to put your best foot forward and give off that personality, your vision, and your values. That personality just shows a little bit of who you are, right? There are lots of email marketers out there, but there's a reason that, Mark asked me onto his show, right? And that probably has to do a bit with my personality, right? There's lots of athletes out there. There's, a reason your favorite is your favorite, right?
It has
What?
nothing to do with your personality. I just want you to
Oh,
know that.
oh,
No, you're
darn.
boring.
I'll
You
try
present
harder.
subject, your subject matter is just dry. You're not very interesting. No, it
Uh,
has nothing to do with your personality.
it was just, I was available.
I'm
She
sorry,
said
keep
yes.
going.
We needed to fill the slot. I get it. I get it. Hang on. Let me stroke my ego over here. It's been bruised.
I was
So
desperate. I was desperate
yeah,
for a guest. That's why.
this is definitely going on my speaking reel. So you got to show off a little bit of that personality, just like Mark is showing off a little bit of his personality, for better or worse, right now. And then you've got to show your vision. So a lot of people, and Mark knows a lot about social media, and so we talk about followers, right? But you can be a part of a group, you can gain a lot of followers at once, but how do you keep followers? You tell them where you're going with them. They have to see the vision, right? No, this isn't Forrest Gump, that movie where people are just running around with Forrest Gump and they don't know where they're going. That's not reality. That's a movie. People will not continue to follow you if they don't know where they're going with you. So you've got to show off that vision of your brand, of your client, whatever. For me, I say something like, as much as I love the 90s, that's my personality, right? I love the idea of you making money through email even more. Boom, I've shared my exact vision for people. Even in the bio, Mark read, like, she's on a freaking mission to make email work for you. Boom, you know exactly where you're going with Liz Wilcox. So, what is your vision for you and your clients, you and your students, whatever you have? And just put that right up front in that welcome sequence. And then your values. People have to know what your business stands for. I'm not talking, you don't have to get political, social justice, anything like that. But what are your
Don't do that.
values? Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I mean, if that's your
Right.
business, that's
Absolutely.
your business. Right. But not everyone is a politician emailing their people, right?
Right.
But you have to have some sort of value system, and you can put that into your brand. For me, and your welcome sequence specifically, for me, I talk a lot about affordability because I grew up really poor, and when I started my business I had $0. So I talk about why my prices are my prices, and it's not like, oh, she doesn't know what she's worth. It's like, oh, she's trying to talk to these people, right? I put my values really forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love it. I think it makes total sense, and I think it's really cool. The number one thing is, I bet there's people that are watching this that don't have a welcome sequence. They just get people signed up and they just start emailing them. And that
Yeah.
welcome sequence is like a landing for them. Okay, great. You just opted in. Let me tell you what you're going to see next. I think it's a great way off the cuff. I almost think of like dating, right? And there's a lot of
Yep.
analogies with the dating these days. But you know
Mhm.
what? It's a way to kind of date, let your audience get to know you. And I think what will happen is you could very likely get your audience to stay a little more committed to your email system, to your emails coming in because they see it. They go, okay, here's the value they're offering. Oh, look, they're doing what they said. This is good. I'm going to make sure this doesn't end up my spam folder. I like it.
Yeah, Mark's spot on. I think we talked about this in my last episode a couple months back, and we talked about the email staircase. So you've got a follower, right? And then you turn them into a friend and then a customer. So, like dating,
I
I just
love
say
that.
the word friend, right? And this isn't, your best friend that, you tell all your dirty secrets to, but someone that you have something in common with, right? Like, so for me, everyone on my email list wants to talk about email, right? And so that's what our friendship is based on. And I love what Mark said about like telling people what to expect. That's exactly it. In the welcome sequence itself, you have to have a separate email all about expectations where it's like, hey, I'm going to offer you this type of advice. And ding, 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 here's the sound effects. If you learn nothing but from Liz Wilcox, let it be this. Like, there has to be a sentence somewhere in your email welcome sequence that says, I'm going to offer you free and paid products, free and paid services, free and paid resources, whatever words you want to use, because it just flips the switch. Maybe they got on your list because you gave them something for free, but it flips a switch in the back of their head. Oh, Mark's a business, Liz is a business,
Yep. Yep.
Morgan's a business, whatever, right? And so suddenly when you sell them, which we'll talk about in a minute, they're not shocked, like, what's that TikTok trend? "Oh, you're shocked? Why are you shocked?" Because you set those expectations right up front. You say, "I'm gonna
Right.
offer you free and paid resources." You set those expectations. You've got to.
All right. I just want you to know, Liz, just for the record, we have sound effects. I know that's a
Oh my
surprise.
gosh, Mark.
I know that's a shock, right? You're shocked? I'm
Yeah.
just a little bit surprised by it. Now we also have others, but you've never heard this one either. I'm just going to say. We don't
Oh
boo
gosh, that
here
would
on How's
be
Your Represents. We only cheer.
oh, good. Well, you did tell me my personality was dull earlier, so I don't know.
Well, you in your last answer, you talked about selling. So I want to jump to this because I think this is very appropriate. What are your thoughts about only sending emails to sell?
Okay, so earlier I mentioned the email staircase, follower, friend, customer, right? How do you turn them into friends? You got to do the three things. First, you have to share in a relatable way. You have to invest time in them, and you have to stay top of mind, right? So that go the staying top of mind is really about like not just emailing when you're selling something, right? You want to make sure people are opening your emails. They know that you care about them, right? Because you've shared that vision and values with them, and
Right.
that they care about you. So you've got to stay top of mind and you have to invest in them, right? So even just emailing once a week or twice a month, whatever you're comfortable with right now, shows like, oh, wow, this person's investing. If I send out that email I mentioned about my membership earlier, about, oh, here's something inspirational for you, that again, it's this back of the mind thing. Oh, wow, Mark was really thinking about what would help me. He sent out this really well thought out article about this Olympian and made this segue into how that's inspiring for us too, right? To build our business. Wow, he's investing time. And again, it's just this like flip in the back of their head, right? They're not forward thinking, oh, Mark cares so much about me, but it's just a psychological thing. And then
Sure.
you have to share in a relatable way, right? So I used to have an RV blog The things I was talking about in my RV blog are not the things I'm talking about now. Of course, I've always been Liz Wilcox. The RV world knows me for my headbands as well, but I never brought up NSYNC or, the 90s, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, because that wasn't relatable. My audience was men in their 60s. Now
Right.
my audience is kind of like a split of just people in their 30s and 40s. So I can talk about those millennial things. I can say that TikTok joke and people are going to get it, where in that other
Right.
audience I didn't. It was not relatable, right? It was share that would not be relatable. And so I really, I urge anyone that wants to take their email marketing seriously to be consistent. Whether or not you say, oh gosh, Liz, once a week,
Mm.
that seems like a huge commitment right now. Even if you do once every other week. Remember, in that welcome sequence, you're going to set expectations. So you're going to say, I'm going to send out an email twice a month, once a week, every Tuesday, whatever it is. Just set that expectation. And then every time you do that, you are reinforcing that you're a man of your word, you're a woman of your word, so that when you go to sell something, they trust you. Because here's another ding ding ding, here's the Liz Wilcox sound effect. People buy people buy from people. This is
The
so
only
fun.
problem, Liz, with that sound effect is it cuts off all over the sound. So we can't hear you at all. I should have warned
Right.
you, but anyway.
No, the screen told me that I was being hushed, which is good because I'm cracking up. It was like, "Shut up, lady, we can't hear you. That someone's applauding." So that's fine. I'm willing to be interrupted for applause. Thank you,
That's
Mark.
so
It's
awesome.
fine.
I hope I didn't
Uh,
throw you off you didn't lose your train of thought. I'm going to stop talking now.
no, no. So people buy from people they trust, right? And so when you share in a relatable way, you stay top of mind, you invest your time into them, that's where the trust is built. And so that's when you can go out and start selling, right? Especially if you've got that foundation with a welcome sequence that shows off the personality, vision, and values. Like, boom, you're in. That's when you can have those crazy conversion rates, like I was talking about with my first course, like 100% of people. Like, that's unheard of. But it was because I built that solid foundation, and because I did those three things, invest, share, and stay top of mind, that people really, really trusted me.
I love this. All right, this is fantastic. And you kind of everybody wants to know what's the result. And the result is, like you just said, crazy conversion rates. And so following these steps, everything that you just shared will help people get more out of the email blast, either all those communications that are coming to them, which will help them when you do sell to want to buy because of all the reasons you just shared. I just think that that's fantastic.
Thanks.
So the question and quick time check here. Yeah, we technically don't, but let's talk about quickly. Let's talk about automation. So this will be
Yeah,
a
this is
quick
a perfect
response.
segue. So the
Yeah.
last thing I want to say about that is, like, along with the crazy conversion and keeping the, and Mark wants to talk about automation. People bought from me, that crazy conversion, people continue to buy from me because I don't have everything automated. Sure, of course, I have that welcome sequence automated. I'm getting new leads probably right now as I'm speaking, right? Um, but I do that newsletter that's fresh every single week, and I'm open to feedback. People are sending me emails back, they're replying, I'm replying, I'm having those conversations that Mark said were really valuable to write down, what people are asking you at the top of the hour. He talked about that. And so when you leave some things up to the human experience, right? You can also start to craft, not only do people trust you even harder, I guess would be the word, trust you more, but you also get so much customer research. You've dug in, your people. The reason why I was able to have that crazy conversion rate is because I created an RV maintenance course, because everyone kept asking me about RV maintenance, if I had any resources on that. I never would have known that if everything was automated. I never would have been having those
Mm.
conversations. And spoiler alert, I've never changed a bike tire. I outsourced that content. I do not know how to fix an RV, but I literally created a course called Fix It Yourself, and I outsourced the content. But I knew my people so well because not everything was automated. I had things that were automated, but I was still in the inbox. I was still doing that customer research. I was still open to feedback. And so I knew exactly what my customer needed. So the more you do email marketing correctly, the more consistent you are with it, the more people will open up to you and literally just tell you what they want. They'll say, "Oh, I
Wow.
wish you had X." Oh, well, I guess I know what I'm doing for Q2. I'm
Wow.
creating
Yeah,
X, right? Does that make sense?
that makes total sense. Oh, I love this. Now, you're so good at what you do. I think, and only because of time, I'm not going to ask you another question. This has
Okay.
been awesome. And I like how you've shared so many great tips. But let's say there's somebody who's watching this who doesn't really have a time to do all this email marketing stuff on their own. Can you help them with that?
Yeah, totally. So if you're I highly recommend after you get done listening to this podcast, after you leave a review for Mark, you just go to lizwilcox.com and get that welcome sequence. I talked about those welcome sequences having four. If you're like, how do I have the personality, vision, values? What the heck is that, Liz? How can I see that in action? You can go to lizwilcox.com. In the top right hand corner, there's a hot pink button. It says free swipes. You're going to get those emails already written for you. You take out the Liz Wilcoxness of it all, put in your thing, and then boom, you've got your welcome sequence, and all that's for free. You can just go to lizwilcox.com in that top right hand corner.
Jeez,
Yeah, yeah,
free.
yeah.
I mean, free's pretty cheap. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't know if you can beat it. But I guess Domino's is now tipping you if you pick up your own pizza, but that's
They
a different
they
story.
are because they have nobody to bring it to you. So
Exactly,
it actually
exactly.
saves them money for the
Right.
record.
So you can go to lizwilcox.com, get started with that, and once you get that welcome sequence, then we'll talk. Then we can work together on, building out your e-presence with email marketing.
You are awesome. You're awesome. Liz, two things. Number one, it's always fun to talk with you. I don't have too many guests that I can have fun with like I do with you. And you're not, I don't throw you off your
Mhm.
I don't throw you off your groove. That's probably
Yeah.
a little dusty comment in and of itself. But
Game
I'm
is
the
the word we
youngest.
use nowadays.
What's the word?
Game. Throw you off your
Game.
game.
There you go. That's less dusty. So I'm the
It's fresh,
fourth of
baby.
5 kids, and if you
Uh-huh.
could not have a thick skin, you're in trouble when you have lots of siblings. And we're an Irish family, so that makes it worse. So thank you for dealing with my jokes. Thank you for joining us again. What you've shared today is extremely valuable because if you're not building, if you're not maintaining an email list, then you're missing an opportunity because you own your email list. You don't
100%.
own your followers on Facebook, your connections on LinkedIn. You don't own those people, own the list. Those systems could go away. Hey, you know what? Did you hear Facebook lost 1 million active users in the last quarter of last year?
Wow.
So in the US, so that's a lot. That's probably why their stock went down 23.2%. But that's another story. Make sure you're building your email list. And then once you start building it, listen to what she's over there. Listen to what Liz just said and build it and maintain it and make it really work for you. And if you don't know how, check out lizwilcox.com. Liz, thanks for being here. Love the time spending with you. Don't go anywhere. I want to chat with you right after the show, but honestly, so glad you could join us from the palace that you are in there in Orlando. So enjoy the pool.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you soon. For the rest of you folks, so glad that you could join us here today. This is what we're all about, right? And Liz talked about making sure that you give value to your audience. We're always interested in trying to do that. Liz helped us provide great value today because I am sure all of you have an email list and you're probably wondering if it's doing what it needs to do. So she showed you today or told you today how you can do that. So for us, How's Your ePresence is produced by ePresence. ePresence is a social media firm. ePresence, and our tagline is social media solved. You can find us at ePresence.me. That's ePresence.me because it's all about you. We manage personal and company social media. We also offer consulting and training. If you're interested in any of our offerings, you can go to that link right there on the screen, e-pr.me/listener, And just by going there, you can get a 5% discount on all of our services. That's a great value. So no matter what you need, whether it's clean up your LinkedIn profile or manage your entire company on social, go there. You get 5% discount on all of our services. How's Your ePresence? It's everywhere. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Please subscribe. So you'll see there's a button there. There it is on the other side. And be glad you're not sitting here in the office with me. But please subscribe, and that way you get notified when we go live. If you like podcasts, go in and check out our podcast link right there, epresence.me/podcast. You can catch all of our podcast locations and get us into your feed. This show is produced by Morgan Wood. I think all of you that have watched this show before know how important Morgan is. She is our producer. She is our senior e-publicist. She is our writer. She is our creative director. She is the person that keeps me sane. So Morgan, thank you for all the work that you do. Until next time, for my guest, Liz Wilcox, I'm Mark Galvin, and this has been How's Your ePresence?